Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, I want to have a look at Filecoin, but before I do, I first want to thank today's sponsor, FairDesk. FairDesk is an exchange, and if you're interested, you can click the link in the description for a deposit bonus and my copy trade. I make a trade on all the alts I review, so if you don't want to miss that, go check it out. Now, getting the basics out of the way, I first as well want to apologize. I'm a little under the weather, so if my throat's a bit croaky, please excuse me. I also will quickly say this is the logarithmic scale, so it moves up equally percentage-wise, and we're looking at Filecoin on its United States dollar on the 1 day using the Coinbase chart. Getting straight into it, we can see that Filecoin has basically been riding this support line for a while and has gotten very close again to this sort of accumulation price range down here, that if we zoom out, we can see it's where it was at this same time during the last cycle. And it's only managed to break it down below this sort of orange line a few times, but when it did last time, it either wicked for literally had a big sell-off, came to this sort of $2.30 range, and then bounced right back up above it, or it spent quite a bit of time down below here and visited these lows once or twice. And it looks like we've already had the former, where we've had these sell-offs that have gone below this support line and tested the bottom level of this accumulation sort of price range, and then we've shot back up, and we sort of had it again here where we had a sell-off, but we didn't quite break into this price range, this price band. We can see now we've actually been sort of riding the support line again for a while, and we saw this last time over here where we sort of rode along this level for a bit, and then we dropped down below. And if we actually check how many days, we were basically down here for 3 months, and currently we've been down here for 2 months. So, it's coming up to, well, we're a month away from where we broke it down last cycle. We could see something similar happen, and I think this will sort of be where it happens. Again, we're sort of lining up with a few key important dates and events that are coming up with the Bitcoin halving, and how alts will basically bleed on Bitcoin until the halving, and usually afterwards a little bit as well. So I would kind of expect that if it is going to drop down below this support line again, it will be in the next few months, and we can see it even drop down here below as late as March, when a year after we sort of had this drop, but that doesn't really mean anything. If we measure it from, say, the initial drop to the last drop, it was about a year and a half. If we go from here to where we currently are, it's been about a year. So you've got another half year, roughly 180 days, roughly, for it to potentially put in more lows, which brings us out to March of 2024, which does sort of line up with the Bitcoin halving, which would again sort of potentially bring markets up. It's also usually a bad time in the short term for Bitcoin, because a lot of miners need to then sell off a lot of their Bitcoin because their revenue is cut in half, and so they need to start selling more Bitcoin to keep things afloat. So yeah, but that's another video. Go check out the Bitcoin or Ethereum videos if you want to find out more about that macro crypto space information. I've also drawn this orange line here, and I've also drawn these two sort of red rectangles. These don't really have any significance except for the fact that it shows how long we stayed below this sort of level of $30 basically, which is sort of where we spend most of the bear market, and it's sort of a key price. Once we break above it, we usually don't break down below it again until it's the bear run. Now, we did sort of have a little fake out here where we dropped back down to $20 and then went into our bull run, and we basically went literally straight up and did a 10x here from this point, I'll remind you. So if you bought anywhere down here, you're doing something like an 100x at $4. If you're holding it till $200, selling it $200, stupid gains from Filecoin basically. But this is what this sort of serves. This $30 level again is a very important one. It also, funnily enough, lines up very well with basically, the 4-year cycle-ish, where Filecoin launched just at the end of the bull run before the last. So it sort of launched into a market where liquidity was being sucked out of it, so it dropped very quickly, and this is where we put in our lows. And then of course it had its cycle, and you know, January of 2022 is roughly 4 years from you know, when it launched, which was December 2017. Literally 4 years, perfectly aligned with the 4-year cycle. And we can also see that at this time it does drop back down under this $30 level, which is where it was at its inception. And then since then it's basically done the same thing. I mean, whatever way it managed to get down, it got down to these levels again, and in a roughly similar time period. Again, we can see it took about a year from there to get down to its lows, and it's basically the same here. Just under a year, maybe a little speedier this time, but the same thing. And then from here, again, it spent from its lows about a year and a half below, you know, at these deep value ranges. And again, if we go from here, year and a half, somewhere around 530 days, it puts us in sort of middle of next year, early middle next year, when we start to climb back up to these higher levels of above $10, and when things aren't so bleak, and when the Fed is printing, or at least not raising, interest rates. So again, very interesting to see how well it's played out. It looks very much as well like the Bitcoin Ethereum pair, where we literally have this down, this W shape basically. It's like a reverse head and shoulders almost. It's really weird. And then we have our bull run, and then straight back down. So it'll be interesting to see whether we have a bounce here, and then we come back down again and test these lower levels after getting a bit of a rise up. Who knows? Who knows? Having a look at Bitcoin, Filecoin, we can see it paints a very interesting picture. I haven't drawn many charts here, but I did just want to point out that basically we've been in a downward ever since the bull run, which is basically the same as every other altcoin. We've broken well below our sort of previous levels, and that does represent in the US dollar price as well, because if we switch to non-logarithmic quickly, we can see that Filecoin has collapsed compared to its all-time high. Like, you know, it came up to just below $240, and now it's back down at, you know, $3, barely holding $3, and keeps wicking below. It has done a few times over the last year or so. So again, to see on its Bitcoin pair that it's completely collapsed, this is to be expected, because we saw how poorly it performed against US dollar. Again, a lot of alts sort of stay above their previous cycle lows. You know, we don't usually come back to retest them on some of the bigger names like Avalanche and Cardano, coins like that. But with not Avalanche, but with Filecoin, for example, we've come back to these levels, and we could even potentially put in a new all-time low, because we're at the same sort of a level. It kind of just depends how big the sell-off or how big the long liquidation is when we do get that, and how far it will drive the price down. It's all very conditional, but to be honest with you, it's not too important. I think if you're buying at this level, even if you're selling at this sort of $30 resistance level, which I wouldn't do, because I know once it breaks above this level, we're usually in for some good price action. But even if you're buying now and selling once it comes back up to this resistance level, if it's a coin you don't trust much or you don't think it'll do well, if you're selling at this resistance level, which is, you know, not even a fifth of its all-time high, you're still making a 10x basically, which is crazy to think about, really. It's crazy. It's not even a sixth of its all-time high, this sort of $30 level. But again, charts kind of speak for itself. We have obviously, you know, our peak of our bull run here, where Filecoin tops out on its Bitcoin pair and then literally crashes. It's like a, you know, done in a couple of days sort of thing, which is crazy. And ever since then, it's gone down. What I kind of gather from this is that Filecoin has a lot of upside potential. I mean, we've seen how far it's fallen. So if it even, you know, if it goes back to 60% of what it was, you're still making a lot of money. That is if you time it properly and, you know, are able to sell at the correct time, which is impossible. But, you know, if you're setting ranges and being reasonable, you should be able to do this no problem, or at least make good money from it no problem, especially if you're buying now, in my opinion, not financial advice. But again, it sort of shows that, you know, during its bull run, Filecoin didn't really move much on its Bitcoin pair until it sort of had these few days of explosive price action. Then ever since, it's just lost value really poorly against Bitcoin. So again, it's not a coin to be holding during the bear run. Like almost every altcoin, it's not really a coin to be holding during the bear run. There have been exceptions, and again, really happy for people that have held those exceptions and done well during the bull run. But for 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, most altcoins do poorly during the bear run compared to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin usually does quite poorly as well. I mean, it's down like 60%. I mean, again, the whole crypto space basically, again, not the video for it, but it's basically a measure of excess liquidity, the crypto space. And, Bitcoin being the safest hedge in this space, still goes down. It just shows that liquidity has been drained from the market because people are taking less risk because they can't afford to lose so much money. But anyway, that about wraps it up for this video, guys. If you liked the video, please leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel. Also, take a look at FairDesk if that's something you're interested in. It helps the channel if you sign up with the link below. Take care, guys, and peace.